Okay, so this is our first time we're doing a multi-access Torah study going on here, and I'm really glad that we have the opportunity to do that. And as we do every week, let's begin with our blessing, and then we'll be able to dive into this week's Torah portion and the midah, the soul trait of Emet, or truth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu לעסוק בדברי תורה, החוכמה, לעסוק בדברי תורה. All right. So this week's Torah portion, we are going to be diving in. It's a challenging Torah portion in a lot of different ways. And I know for those of us who had a chance to look at the Musar Torah commentary, it dives straight into that. All of the deception, all of the lies, all of the really challenging things that pop up. So let me share my screen so that we can get started. It's hiding what I need to see. Whoops. Hello, Tom. Good to see you. It's on 1 second. It's hiding what I need to see. Exit full screen. Okay.
That's cute.
All right, so we'll be able to see the text, and I got some feedback that it's helpful to get the text sheet a little bit earlier so that people can print it out if they want. So I think I'm going to start actually on purpose sending out the reminder on Wednesdays, and this way you can see that sheet in advance. Yeah. If for whatever reason a Wednesday is so busy that I don't get a chance to do that, if you go on Safaria and you type in my name, you will find every single text sheet that I've ever created, including the most recent up-to-date one. So you can always kind of look there yourself.
Yeah, when I saw that notice yesterday, my whole world revolves around. I was like, wait, what day is this? What's happening?
I hit that button and I couldn't undo it quick enough, and I apologize for all the confusion. It's like, oh no, it's like slow motion. Stop. It happens. I was not trying to deceive anyone. Oh no. Sorry. Let's try this again. The problem is when I'm plugged into the screen, it sometimes does some funny things with my mouse or it changes. There it is. Okay. Leave it there. No. Hold on 1 second. I will get it up again. There we are. Fine. That'll work. All right. So here's our text sheet. And I wanted to just start with this small piece out of the Reconstructionist Machzor, or High Holy Day prayer book, that was put together, this particular thing, by Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan. And he wrote, "From the cowardice that shrinks from new truth, from the laziness that is content with half-truths, from the arrogance that thinks it knows all truth, O God of truth, deliver us." And so today we're really going to be diving into this soul trait, this idea of truth telling. And before we even look at these texts and look at the Torah piece that we've read from the Musar Torah commentary, I just want to give us all an opportunity to reflect on truth. I know it's been a controversial topic in a way, especially over the past few years. I think of Colbert and his truthiness that he talked about, and just the way in which sometimes people differ on what the truth is, and how truth might not necessarily always be based in fact. And so, like, what does this mean to us, this kind of idea of the truth? And how important is it for us to tell the truth?
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
I always think of a jury trial or being on a jury or a witness. You have to take an oath that you swear to tell nothing but the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And when you say that, that immediately separates you from what goes on in life. You are there to not make a judgment. Everything you say has to be the best of your ability, the truth. In real world, you don't take that oath and you don't observe that oath. You understand that there's a world out there that's full of half-truths. You got to avoid too many lies, although sometimes there's purpose for lies. So there are regions in our life that we understand the whole truth and nothing but it. But situations in the world sometimes call for not the truth. Like if the Nazis are looking for Jews in your house. So there are times the truth is not something you should do.
So it's complicated.
Oh, so it is complicated.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah, jump in.
Well, for me, there's different truths, and there's mathematical and scientific truth and historical truth. And then there's what you might think, or I think of as like your daily truth. The last thing that Larry mentioned was hiding Jews in your house or the Nazis, that's like daily, your truth of your life. Historical truth and working backwards, scientific and mathematical truth. I think something is true if it cannot be falsified. And that would only be the case of mathematical truth, because science is, people are falsifying scientific statements all the time. That's how science progresses. And historical facts are rewritten periodically when new discoveries are made, new archaeological discoveries or things like that. So that's my feeling about truth.
Excellent.
Yeah, Tom.
I would say that, obviously you read this and, the truth is very complicated, right? It just is. And for me, I've always kind of, what does it feel like to me? Is that past the smell test, or kind of, is that, and it goes to really intentionality, because like, as you saw in the Musar reading, you can restate it and technically say the truth, but convey a different meaning, right? What's your intention of what you're saying? Well, I'm saying everything that's true. I could do the same thing. And, in my profession, especially in litigation and other things, you're wordsmiths, you're playing with that all the time, that line. And, for me, it comes down to, a big element is your pure intention. Because manipulation is easy, with language.
Yeah. So there's so much of us. Not everything is numbers, right? With numbers, 2 + 2 = 4. It's not debatable, or maybe someone can debate it, but I'm sure my son would debate it sometimes, but it's real. They're not going to get very far, right? But when it comes to language, when it comes to things that have relevance in this funny gray world in which we live, it gets so much harder. So I like the piece that you're bringing in about intentionality. Anyone else have any reflections or thoughts on this?
I have a lot.
Yeah.
Because this is a major problem when I was growing up. If my father was furious and what he wanted to do was accuse you of something, he would keep at it until you said that you had done it, or whatever it was, or you evaded it, or you told a lie, or you told a half-truth, and it was very situational. And and it's something I think about a lot because it was such a big part of, particularly when I was a teenager, which was before he stopped drinking. And I mean, I have this list of things here, like truth is relative, truth is a point of view. I love somebody said historical, but we also remember that truth is written by the victor of whatever happened in that situation. The truth is daily. Are things, sometimes we don't tell our own self the truth about ourselves. It's like, yeah, I really want to go to this, so I'm going to ignore that. Maybe I should have taken my temperature, but I didn't. Or that truth is a tool and truth is situational. To me, this is a huge, huge topic.
Yeah. Yeah, Frank, do you want to say something?
I do. This is a absolutely huge topic, and it's something I need in my life right now too. I'm just starting to maybe build a new relationship with this woman I met, and when I tell her the half truths about Frank, does she just meet my representative? So, and not even on just that level. What makes me never want to tell the truth is fear of judgment from you, fear of judgment from everyone around, whatever. Right. So it's always fear. And so I know that that's when I would tend to lie. And maybe it started when I was a kid, being abused at home. I just lied to not get my face punched in by my stepdad, so I learned to get out of something real quick. But someone told me a long time ago, fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And that's so, I will make up my own truth for survival, for whatever, for my own ego to keep surviving. So telling the truth always hurts my ego. Well, and it's also relieving fear when I'm honest with another person. So, all right, that's all I have.
Well, that gives us so much to reflect on. Thank you, Frank, for that. I wish we could go down all those avenues right now that you just opened up for us, because there's so much honesty and vulnerability in that, and a lot of power in that. So I want us to kind of keep that in the back of our heads as we're moving forward here with our text.
So
yeah, go
I
ahead,
would just
please.
like to add something that it's kind of what others have said, but it reminds me of in not just in the beginning, but in a beginning. And so it's a continual process. And I think truth is also a continual process, because what's true today will not necessarily be true tomorrow.
Beautiful. Yes. So let's start diving into some of our texts. And we're starting with a few that talk about, circumstances in which telling the truth might be really important, and circumstances in which perhaps not telling the truth is actually the right thing to do. And there's this one text. I'm hoping this isn't too small. Oh, there we go. It's allowing me to do a little bit. This is from the Talmud, Sanhedrin. It says, anyone who is inconsistent with his words is comparable to one who worships idolatry. So there's text from the Torah, and indeed there are other texts that talk about the importance of telling the truth, right? We have that clearly in our text. As we know, telling the truth in general, a very valuable, a worthwhile, and it's good to be an honest person. And yet we have so much else that can kind of contradict that, because we are complicated and this world is complicated. So I took this little piece from the American Musar, which has various cycles. It talks about different midot the same way we are. And it had a little picture at the bottom that seems to have not shown up on this, which makes me upset, but that's okay. We can talk about it. It says, the goal of practicing the truth soul trait is to learn to appreciate the truth from another's perspective and to exercise judgment about how much of your truth to share with others. Too little truth can lead to people losing trust in us, will not believe us even when we are telling the truth. Too much truth might lead us to be unkind or hurtful. Mm-hmm. And so we have the spectrum of truth, the same way we do with every other midah, right? There's a spectrum, and we can fall sometimes on too little or too much. And the goal is to find that balance exactly where we want it to be. Oh, come on, go down.
It's interesting, the too much truth piece. That's actually a part of the high holy days of asking to be forgiven. Is that sometimes you open a truth which is extraordinarily painful to someone else.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
And to think about that, it's one of the nuances that is really challenging.
Yeah,
Right.
and just adding on that, it's like we have a duty, a fiduciary duty when we speak to the other, to love the other, to interact, to kind of see, because words matter, right? And how we communicate, like you're saying, it's a range and it's a spectrum, right? So there's so many variables, right? And we have control over that, of what we communicate. So it'd be good to be cognizant of the other and to feel where they are as we're communicating that, to avoid collateral damage, right? Too much truth, too little truth,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
mean,
big responsibility.
it is, it's a huge responsibility. And I think that actually all of that, everything that both of you just said is a really wonderful entree into this particular Talmudic text. So I'm having trouble just making it the right size and navigate it without my computer going crazy on me. So I'm sorry if it's a little too small, but it says, our rabbis taught, how does one dance before the bride? Beit Shammai says the bride is as she is. And Beth Hillel says a beautiful and graceful bride. So what's going on here? Here, there's a bride on her wedding day.
Mhm.
And Hillel and Shammai are having a conversation about, they see the bride. They don't think that she's all that beautiful. What do they say? Right? That's the debate that's going on. And Beit Hillel says, a beautiful and graceful bride. Tell her she's beautiful and graceful. Doesn't matter what you think, right? Tell her that, because she should hear that. Beit Shammai said to Beit Hillel, if she's lame or blind, does one say of her, beautiful and graceful bride? Whereas the Torah said, keep away from a lie. Beit Hillel said to Beit Shammai, according to your words, if one has made a bad purchase in the market, should one praise it in front of him or denigrate it? Surely one should praise it in front of him. Therefore, the sages said, one should always have a pleasing disposition in front of other people. So Shammai is saying, I under no circumstances am going to lie. If someone is in front of me and I don't believe them to be beautiful, I'm not going to say they are. And Hillel says, no, it's their wedding day. Do whatever you need to say in order to make them feel good, because everyone should feel good on their wedding day, right? This is the debate.
I feel like I know, Shammai and Hillel, like that's the guy that, is a little, too crass or too, and then this is the guy who's a little bit more diplomatic and, easy to get along with. That's so funny.
See, telling the truth, I mean, we don't know what the circumstances were, why this hypothetical woman was lame or blind, but in her mind, this is her wedding day. So why would we not tell a lie? Because it's very special to her, right? And so to say, wow, I've seen prettier brides before would be so hurtful, and she would never forget that.
Yeah.
But, so I don't I believe that there are times when one should lie to make another person, to sort of ameliorate the situation and not have a person be hurt by the lie.
I have another
By the truth.
I have another situation. If a doctor knows you have cancer and are going to die, he doesn't tell you that. It depends on the person. He has a whole bunch of words. A policeman is looking for your lost daughter. He says, I promise I will find her. These are, you have to look at the situation, what the person can handle. You have to do the best for what the person can handle. That's the most important thing. You can't be blunt with a person who can't handle it.
Yes, but Larry, but in medicine, when the patient asks you, doctor, tell me the truth, what is my condition? The doctor is not going to lie. I don't
Right.
think he can. Maybe it just doesn't happen.
But that's up to the person. The person may,
No, I think the doctor is duty bound to tell the truth to that person, because this is a medical examination and a diagnosis, and it's not Torah study, and the person needs to know his or her truth.
I would hope so.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think with a doctor, it's a legal thing, but if it were, let's say, the wife of the doctor told the wife, should the wife tell the husband?
Right.
that's different. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I have a take on it where, I mean, who is anyone to judge anybody? Like, he's judging that woman on her wedding day. Like, who, you find something nice to say or you don't say anything. Like, just to judge someone, it's a child of God who's doing the best she can to look the best she can on her wedding day. Who is anyone to judge that child of God? So that should keep you from being honest right there. Shut your mouth, right? If you have nothing nice to say at all, right? So sorry, I shouldn't say shut your mouth, but
Yeah.
all right.
No, thanks for adding that. Marla, go ahead.
What's coming to my mind are children, that we do an outstanding job of teaching them to lie, because we're Shammai and Hillel, young boys of 4 or 5 years of age. They mightn't both say something about this bride, neither of which would be judgmental. It's sort of the facts as they see them. And I can recall sometimes adults being taken aback when child says, look at that person in the wheelchair. And we don't shame them, but we might say just as if it's wrong to acknowledge that's a blind person, that's a fat person, that's a wheelchair bound person. So that's what's running around in my head right now. What do we do as we grow and mature? We kind of learn to lie, because it goes back, I think, what Tom was saying, your intention, and then what your understanding is of how the other person might feel.
Yeah.
I have a comment, this is Irv.
Yeah, please, Irv.
I think a lot of what we think is of truth is really a good portion of it is opinion, but it comes out sometimes like it's truth. On the comic in me says that there are 3 stages of life. There's youth, there's middle age, and then there's you're looking really good.
Yeah, right.
But what you may believe is the truth today, you may change your mind very, maybe gradually, but over time. And so I think what we're talking about is more a personality thing. How do you behave? You behave to ostracize yourself. I mean, or to endear yourself with friends. People who tell the truth and make it a point to point out the truth all the time, they don't have many friends.
Well, it depends what the purpose of the truth is, right? Here, telling a bride, I don't find you beautiful on your wedding day, that doesn't serve anyone. Like, that just brings anger and hurt into the world. If someone were to say, though, something that was flat out racist, misogynistic, hurtful, to say, what you said I found to be really hurtful, might make that person uncomfortable, but that truth has a higher purpose. And that's a very different kind of thing. So this contextual kind of stuff that we have, it's so important. And you're right, Irv, it's not truth with a capital T. It's truth with a lowercase t. It's our individual truths, which may or might not line up completely with reality.
What I find always very interesting and amusing is that, when some couples get together, invariably the women might say to one another, so what do you think? How does this dress look on me? Or how do you think I'm looking? And the other one always says, wow, you're looking great. The dress, the outfit is fabulous. But men usually just, how have you been? You know, they never, even if the guy is like falling apart, you know, we wouldn't necessarily, I think the women in their minds might not tell the truth because they wouldn't want to make the other person feel hurt by it, but they're always saying, oh yes, that dress looks amazing on you, it's fabulous.
Yeah, Tom.
I was just gonna say, you know, it's not only, you know, I've always done a lot of international travel and business and stuff like that. So in culturally and language wise, it varies widely. So what how we interact in the United States and the sensitivity we may have in other countries, and I can tell you firsthand, there's a different level of bluntness and acceptability of that truth or that information. So it kind of depends on culture and language also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even from place to place in the US, right? Like there's big differences.
New York is way different than,
Yeah,
you know.
totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to take us to the next text because there is so much to talk about in this portion. I want to make sure we have a chance to start to dive in. But this one text I just have to bring in, Yevamot. Rabbi Ilya said, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer ben Shimon, a person may edit what has been said for the sake of peace. As Joseph's brothers said, your father commanded, please forgive. So that was in the context of helping Joseph and his brothers come together. That this was after Jacob had died. There is a whole context to that. We'll get to that in a few weeks from now. But the other piece of this, the school of Rabbi Ishmael taught, peace is so important that even God altered what was said for its sake. For first, Sarah said, if we remember from a couple weeks ago, right? Sarah found out she's having a baby and says, but my husband is so old. How could I possibly have a baby, right? And then when God is recounting this story to Abraham, what does God say? Sarah said, but I am so old. How can I possibly have a baby? And what was the point of that? For the sake of peace, not to create a rift between the two of them. God lies. And if God lies, what does that tell us about how maybe truth is an important value, but it's not the ultimate value? There's something else that needs to be balanced with it.
Right.
So let's start diving in to this week's Torah portion. And I don't know if I'm going to do all these texts. I might skip a little bit. But I think this is important because it sets the stage. Does anyone want to read these verses?
I can read them.
Thank you.
When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the outdoors. Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. Isaac favored Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah favored Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the open, famished, and Esau said to Jacob, give me some of that red stuff to gulp down, for I am famished, which is why he was named Edom. Jacob said, first, sell me your birthright. And Esau said, I am at the point of death, so of what use is my birthright to me? But Jacob said, swear it to me first. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Jacob then gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and he rose and went away. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright.
Okay, so who comes out looking good here? Or who comes out really not looking good here?
Cool.
Both of them.
Both of them, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Right?
well, you know,
Jacob
obviously,
especially.
undue influence of Jacob. Right?
Jacob's kind of taken advantage of him. And the rabbis, like, they know what's going to happen. And Jacob just took away the birthright, right? And through this kind of trickery that's going on here. And the rabbis feel a tiny bit uncomfortable with that, Like, what really is going on? And so they begin to enter in this midrash, these different ideas. Well, maybe Esau had it coming. Maybe there's something else going on here, right? It's kind of a classical blame the victim kind of stuff that's going on here. It's problematic. And so Rashi offers this commentary because it uses the words that Esau is a cunning hunter. So they say literally understanding hunting, understanding how to entrap and deceive his father with his mouth. Okay, so here is Jacob, who's the one who actually is doing the deception. But here it's saying, no, it's Esau. Esau is the hunter. He entraps and deceives his father. He would ask him, Father, how should salt and straw be tithed? Although he knew full well that these are not subject to the law of tithe. Consequently, his father believed him to be very punctilious in observing the divine ordinances. So he asked questions which would lead his father to think that he was far more concerned with the mitzvot, far more concerned with what was ethical and right than he actually was. That's what it's saying. So it seems like Esau is this good kid who's doing all this stuff to Jacob, but actually he's just kind of putting on a facade. That's what Rashi is saying here.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
just up a little bit, Jacob is described as a mild man. And
Yes.
how can a mild man do what he did?
Great question. Yeah, Tom.
Well,
I think that this paragraph is setting the stage, the author is setting the stage for the big lie.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Tom, what did you want to say?
along the lines of what Irv just said, it just seems like there's mental gymnastics going on here to get to justify a certain position, theologically it's going to be taken, shortly.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm going to pass over this other deceptive text, which actually our bar mitzvah, we have a bar mitzvah, Kate Adam Small is going to be teaching on Saturday morning, a beautiful teaching that relates to this very topic about truth telling. But he's focusing it around this other text where there's a deception of identity, of lying and saying, oh, my wife isn't my wife, she's my sister. And so Adam, I'll let him teach about that on Saturday. We'll skip over so that we could just focus on this one story of Esau and of Jacob. So why don't we read this? So this is skipping ahead about a chapter and a half or so. So when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, "My son." He answered, "Here I am." And he said, "I am old now, and I do not know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver and bow, go out into the open and hunt me some game. Then prepare a dish for me such as I like and bring it to me to eat, that I might give you my innermost blessing before I die." Rebekah had been listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau had gone out into the open to hunt game to bring home, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "I overheard your father speaking to your brother Esau, saying, 'Bring me some game and prepare a dish for me to eat, that I might bless you with my Eternal's approval before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully as I instruct you. Go to the flock, fetch me 2 choice kids, and I will make of them a dish for your father, such as he likes. Then take it to your father to eat, in order that he might bless you before he dies.'"
Okay.
Jacob answered to his mother Rebekah, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am smooth-skinned. If my father touches me, I shall appear to him as a trickster and bring upon myself a curse, not a blessing." But his mother said to him, "Your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do as I say and go fetch them for me." He got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared a dish such as his father liked. Rebekah then took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which were there in the house, and had her younger son Jacob put them on. And she covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with the skins of the kids. Then she put in the hands of her son Jacob the dish and the bread that she had prepared. He went to his father and said, "Father," and he said, "Yes, which of my sons are you?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have told me. Pray sit up and eat of my game that you might give me your innermost blessing." So there's a lot of deception, a lot that's going on in this text.
Yeah.
And what I included in this text sheet are a lot of different kind of reflections on what really is going on here, what's going on in people's minds, what are the various issues that are being played out at this moment. There is a book written a few years ago called When a Lie is Not a Sin, by a colleague of mine, Dennis Ross. And in it, he talks about this story among many of the other kind of deceptions in the Torah. It's a beautifully written, not difficult to read book, not terribly big either, but just really well done. And in it, he says, Rebecca offers to shoulder the responsibility for hatching and orchestrating the ruse. So it can be argued that Jacob doesn't do anything wrong here. He merely honors his mother's instructions, just as the fifth of the Hebrew Bible's 10 commandments later demands of a child with respect to a parent. But as surely as the 10 commandments insist that a child behave with respect to both parents, that a child honors both father and mother, Jacob is caught in the middle in a double effect between obeying his mom and respecting his dad. And in this zero-sum game, zero-sum winner-take-all family scenario, Jacob decides to honor mom. Yet Midrash also exonerates Jacob by blaming Rebecca. When Jacob went to get them and bring them to his mother, he acted under duress, bowed over and weeping. Genesis Rabbi, as if to say he really doesn't want to go ahead with it, poor guy.
Yeah.
So this is like another reading of what's going on here. So what do you think? How much of an accomplice in this was Jacob? Yeah, Tom.
For me, and I'm not a Talmudic scholar, but for me, it seems like, a lot of the Midrash and a lot of these, they miss the mark, right? They're just not taking the task what feels to me is right? First of all, raising a child that you didn't, you're not a biological parent, and favoring one over another, and those types of things. Maybe in antiquity, that was common, like slavery, other things, but that feels wrong. And I would like to see somebody, over the thousands of years say something about that. I would like to, the cunningness and the deception all over material economic gain and inheritance, it seems, just disappointing that we're not focusing on that aspect of it. And, we can learn a lesson from this, right? We learn about, these are people, we all miss the mark all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what can we learn from that? But not the lesson of, somehow justifying, things.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone is.
I'm not saying they are, but I just, I would like to see more on.
Yeah, and that
everything.
exists, but there is actually plenty that's written about that, about what is so, the reason this is all set up for disaster from the very beginning is because of this favoritism that's going on. And not only that, Jacob doesn't even learn from it because he does the same thing and that causes disaster too, right? Obviously, that's a huge issue when it comes up. The context of this is talking about truth-telling and deception, which if that hadn't happened, there wouldn't have necessarily been a need for any of it.
And it feels a little disingenuous to blame solely Rebecca and to say that Jacob didn't want to do any of this because we just read that Jacob, willfully, without his mom's interventions, tried to stole his brother's, birthright.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels a bit revisionist trying to heap all the blame onto Rebecca so that Jacob's blameless in the situation.
Good point, because we've seen his character in a different circumstance.
Again, what is the author trying to tell us here. You know, it's Jacob picked a choice that benefited him. He had a choice between mom and dad. It's not a choice between mom and dad. It's a choice between what's best for me. And I think that's what I get out of this, the whole setup and the last paragraph.
Yeah.
So how old is Jacob approximately? Do we have any idea at this time?
Great question. I remember seeing one midrash that they are around 13 when
Okay.
when the first they're 13 toward the beginning of this. So at this point it would have to be much later.
So so they're old enough. I mean, he's old enough to know right from wrong, and
Yes.
and to do what is, it's one thing obeying your parent, but if you obey the parent, your parent, and you know, or you should know that it's wrong, this deception, then you need to be blamed as well. I mean, it's you don't get off scot-free. Right?
Mhm.
There was a rabbi at a Shabbaton that Temple Beth had years ago who says it says to honor your mother and father. It doesn't say you have to like them.
There you go. Yes, Sandy.
But even the word honor is
That yeah.
Is
I want to give Sandy a chance because she's had her hand raised for a little bit.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I just want to go back to when Esau says Hineni, because when I think of Hineni, it's not only just a physical, I am here, but this is my essence, and I'm really here to serve you. And so in a way, Esau is the one who's coming from truth, because he's not being an imposter in any way. Hineni, here I am.
I like that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like looking at this and I don't, every year we read these things. I've never had the impression that Jacob was, quote, acting under duress, bowed over and weeping. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's totally from a midrash.
Overheard the father, and she says, "Hey, dude, you've got this opportunity," and he raises a couple of objections, but those are reality objections. They're, how am I going to make this work? I don't have a whole lot of hair on my forearm, and it's. I mean, I was like going along with this, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, he took it straight from the midrash. This is Genesis Rabbah. And so the rabbis were really uncomfortable with these stories. And so what are they doing? Trying to figure out ways to make it okay. I mean, it is apologetics. It definitely is.
It's the fascination of studying Torah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to one text here that was a little bit earlier, that we actually read within the first section. So the children struggled in Rebecca's womb, right? This is at the very, very beginning when she is pregnant with these two boys. And so Rebecca says, if so, why do I exist? And she went to inquire of the Eternal, and God answered her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 separate people shall issue from your body. One people shall be mightier than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. When her time came to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. So what this does is that some people say, okay, well, God told her, favor your younger son. God is the one who set this in motion. So it's not Rebecca's fault, it's God's fault. That's what some of the midrashim say.
The twins, one of them was Ishmael, right?
No, this is Esau. This is Jacob and Esau. Yeah, Shelley, what would you like to say?
Well, I just like to say I come from a very big family, and my oldest brother was the heir to my great-grandfather's money. It's just an example of, and at the time, he was supposed to take care of all the younger people. That's the way it worked. My mother knew forever that this was not a good deal and tried to get a different heir in place who would be more responsible than my brother. It didn't work out. And I bet you my mother wishes that she could have pulled off what Rebecca had pulled off. So I think inside Rebecca knew, she knew in her heart she knew with a relationship with God told her that there was another heir that would be better than the oldest one. And it was breaking precedent in a sense, which is what the Jews are known for, with monotheism. And I think it's just a different way of looking at what is a true heir, just like what is a lie, what's truth, what's a lie, but what is the true heir? And what makes a true heir? It's responsibility, love. Maybe Jacob had all of those qualities. So that Esau may have lacked. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, it's a great thought. I mean, I think it's very, very appropriate.
Yeah.
Is
Real
it
life.
what God set this in motion? But I don't agree with God said, so now you should lie to get your position.
Well,
I'm confused about the twins. Who are the twins?
The twins are Esau and Jacob.
Jacob
Esau is
and
the
Esau.
younger of the two, but only by a few seconds.
Oh, so that's how they consider him the oldest.
Yeah,
Okay.
those few seconds made the difference.
Okay, I got it now.
Rabbi?
Yeah,
I was
please.
curious, since it seems to be
Esau's the older.
the wrestling with the idea that it's okay for someone who traditionally would not be the heir being given power in this situation, in this case Jacob over Esau. I'm curious if this had any kind of relevance during the kind of Second Temple period with because the Nasi, I know, like the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court, started to get more power kind of when there was a lost confidence almost in the high priest. And I was curious if this was, I don't know if anyone knows this, but if this was at all relevant to the thinking of that situation, that of being able to transfer the power towards like a recognized authority, but not the person who's supposed to have the most authority.
It's a really good question. I don't have an answer to it, but it's a really, really good question.
Okay.
I can look into that for you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking at the time. There's so much to discuss with this, right? Trying to figure out what's okay, that's when Esau comes back in. So one of the other texts that comes in, and this is again Rashi, but taking it from other sources, is it goes to this verse that happened before, where Jacob says, I am Esau, your firstborn. And the Hebrew of that text, Anochi Esau, so I am Esau, thy firstborn. It could also be understood as I am he that brings food to you, and Esau is your firstborn. You could read the Hebrew that way, right? So maybe he wasn't actually telling a lie. Of course, if you go back and you look at the context, it's a little harder to believe. But Dennis Ross then adds to that and says, I imagine that Rashi was deeply embarrassed by Jacob's egregious lie. After all, Rashi and his colleagues faced up to the Hebrew Bible critics who misappropriated the stories and others to attack Jewish belief, practice, and people. The hostile environment, sorry, I don't know what I typed there, backed our rabbis into a corner, and they responded with innovative explanations to harmonize the moral fabric of Judaism with the questionable behavior of patriarchy. And you know what? Either translation is consistent with the Hebrew Bible text. You could truly read it either way. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's not just, from a modern legal standpoint, it's not just a lie. It's a lie, an untruth, communicated with the intent to induce the other party's reliance on that to get another thing. So it's not just the saying of a lie, oh, you look great tonight. It's inducing them to rely on the untruth to get to a certain advantage or something else.
Personal
So it's
gain.
Misrepresentation,
Right.
fraud, things. So that's what bothers me more about it.
I think, I'm sorry, I think it's the invention of it's in the fine print. Fine print. I mean, so that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think this is a way when someone comes to you with a question, already knowing what the answer they want. and then in my professional life, someone come here, will you do this particular project? This is the answer I want. Didn't say it verbally. In other words, I'm supposed to be an independent person. I mean, have an attitude that I'm going to deal with the facts only, but I know which way my boss is leaning. So, and that's kind of what I do. I would like to ask an Orthodox person what he felt of the literal interpretation of that phrase was, because Orthodox view is no mystery. Everything is, I believe everything that is said.
Irv, I'm not sure that's true, because there's lots of different ways to look at a text. And so Rashi is taking the text that's there, which is a common rabbinic technique. That you look at the text because the text doesn't have vowels, and you can have lots of different meanings on what the text is. And so it's about having debate about what is the meaning. That's what happens in the Talmud all the time. It's constant debate. No, don't read this. Read this. You have the wrong vowels. That's why you're not understanding. Like, that happens constantly. So this isn't a Reform Orthodox thing.
Well, I'm glad you enlightened me on that, because I held that view that they went down to every little letter, but I don't understand.
No, they do.
Yeah.
They do, but it still could be read in different ways, right? There again, this idea of multiple truths.
I'm glad to hear that.
So
think about our own language, or almost any language.
Right. There's lots of different ways to understand. How many times do we get in arguments with people or debates with people, and we realize that we're using the same word for different things, and we actually totally agree, but the word struck us differently. Happens all the time. So I want to bring it a little bit from our Musar Torah commentary, because I haven't even done that yet. And part of the reason is that she starts so far into the story that we needed to go through the story before we could go to this. But Lisa Goldstein, Rabbi Lisa Goldstein says, what's going on here? How are we to understand the actions of our mythic ancestors and their apparent complete disregard for the truth, Emet? The truth about the truth is that it is not always so simple. We get a glimpse of the uncomfortable reality in a midrash about the creation of the first human being. Rabbi Shimon taught that when the Blessed Holy One decided to create the first human, the ministering angels divided into opposing blocks, some of whom said that humans should not be created, while others said that humans should indeed be created. The angel of loving kindness and the angel of justice argued in favor of the creation of humans who would strive to do acts of loving kindness and justice. But the angel of truth and the angel of peace disagreed. The angel of peace argued that humans would be entirely made up of conflict, and the angel of truth argued that humans would be entirely made up of lies. In response, the Holy Blessed One flung the angel of truth to the earth, whereupon the other ministering angels gathered around and said, "But Master of all worlds, is not truth your own seal? Raise truth back up from the earth." The angel of truth, of course, speaks the truth. We humans have indeed made up of lies. Look no further than our Torah portion and then in our own experiences. We, like Rebecca, Jacob, and Isaac, are profoundly limited in our perspective, in our awareness, and in our understanding of our own desires. We make assumptions about others' motives all the time. It is not our fault that we cannot recognize the whole truth. According to the Midrash, our inability to recognize the full truth is essential to the way that we were created. Do you buy that?
Yes.
I see nods. Yeah, it's really complicated though, isn't it?
Yeah, I buy it just because in the end, I think at the end of the day, I'm doing the best I can as a child of Hashem. Like, I just know, and if I can live that way, then I don't have to worry about anyone else's expectations, and that makes it more peaceful for me if I know that I'm just doing the best that I can. And so I think that's that ultimate truth, is that I'm a child of God. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to maybe smudge a number or something, who knows, I try not to, but I'm going to do the best I can. And so that's what I felt the ultimate truth was at it.
Yeah. And I think that gets back to what Tom said earlier too, about the intentions, right? Like, if we look at this text by Rebbe Gedalia of Linz, Essentially, he goes to the statement from the Talmud, any falsehood that does not have some truth in it will not in the end be sustained. Well, for what Rebecca did, what Jacob did, the lies they told were lies, but perhaps they contain truth because Jacob was meant to be the heir. He was meant to be the one who received the birthright and blessing. And so perhaps sometimes a lie is necessary. I'm not saying in this case it was necessary. There could have been lots of other ways that we went about it, but sometimes in life, a lie might be necessary. But hopefully in its core, it contains a truth that does have a higher value. We're not just, lying for the sake of lying or for our own personal gain. We're doing it because it actually has a value.
I have something to say. If you think about the whole issue of climate change, how do you picture the truth from the lies? There's so much at stake that people lie all the time, maybe even on both sides.
So Larry, and that's where the whole idea, right, of truthiness comes in. It's so hard to be able to tell. And you raise a really great point that is worthy of conversation. Right now, I'm looking at the time and it's 1:29. So I'm going to have to put a pin in that for now, but I think it would be great to go back to that conversation. But I just want to end with this other piece from the Musar Torah commentary. So Lisa Goldstein writes, so what do? We bring greater attention to our habits of truth-telling and lying. I changed this possibly after you had gotten it. So if you have something different, don't worry about it. When is it easy for us to tell the truth? When do we take refuge in a lie? When we find ourselves not telling the truth, we can, like Rebecca, look deeper inside ourselves and search for an explanation from our inner knowing. What is, in fact, the truth? Is there some truth contained within this falsehood? How might things be different if we could acknowledge that hidden truth? We humans might be entirely made up of lies, but we are also made in the divine image. By bringing more truth into this world, we can bring more divinity into the world and lessen suffering in us all.
That's the sense that I keep.
Yeah.
Can I bring up one thing real quick?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing that I noticed, and especially when you go back to the garden, the serpent never tells Eve to eat the fruit or to go to the tree, right? He just keeps asking her questions. Why would you not be able to? It's like this deceiving questions. He never says, go do it. And a lot of that comes in this part too, where it's more of like a deceiving leading question, which comes to today's world. That's what Fox News does, right? That's what we're just asking questions, and it's always a deceiving question with the answer that they want. And it's so tied into today's world that deceiving, just asking questions. You don't ever answer them, they just ask questions. So anyway, I just really wanted to, because it's a lie in a way. It is a lie, but it's just the way that they lied. It's very deceitful.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen in so many different ways in the world, right? Yeah, Michael.
Did Rebecca know God's intention, or was it just like maternal favoritism when she caused this lie to go forward? I mean, did she?
Yeah, I mean, remember, God told her,
okay, so
Jacob will rule over Esau.
Okay, so it was intentional then. Are you saying that?
Yeah, I mean, God kind of set that in motion. That doesn't necessarily mean that she didn't have to take responsibility for her own actions, but there was definitely a check on it from God.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I wish we can continue this conversation so much more, because there's a lot to discuss here, really a lot to discuss here. And I don't remember if Emet appears again within this book. We'll have to see. But I just want to thank you all so much for a wonderful, insightful conversation, for all of your comments and thoughtfulness. It's really such a blessing to be able to study with you on Thursdays. I will let you know that a week from today, it happens to be Veterans Day / Armistice Day. And so I'm going to be speaking at an event with SCIC in Long Beach. around the time of Torah study. It starts at 10:30 actually. So next Thursday, the temple office is closed. We won't be having Torah study. I encourage anyone who is able to be at the SCIC event to come. All the information is going to be sent out to everyone in the congregation shortly. Carrie has all of it. So that'll be what happens next week. Just want to give you a heads up on that.
That'll be on Zoom.
I'm not sure if it will be on Zoom. I'm sure there's a way to do that, but I'm not the one running the event, so I actually don't know the answer. Yeah.
Rabbi, I've been trying to get the answer to my question by calling the office, leaving messages and so on. But that 12-week Musar course, and